Alright, compadres, I'm going to do my pickguard shielding here. So here's the pickguard. Just put it down on a plastic bag so that I don't get my surface, get glue on the surface. And then here's my aluminum foil. This is heavy duty, a plug for Reynolds wrap, I guess. The alternative to this, I guess, is to do copper foil tape, but one that's expensive. I think copper in general is pretty expensive at this point in history. You can get it, I think, at like a hardware store for slug repellent, but to use in a garden or something. I've heard about that, but if you do that, you have to solder the connections to make sure that there's conductivity there. Otherwise, the adhesive is not conductive. So, or you could get it from like StuMac, but I think that's even more expensive. So, aluminum foil does the job, so we're going to use that. I intended to use spray adhesive, but the store I was at, it was like 10 bucks, and I was like, I'm not going to use it again, probably for anything, so I don't want to spend that much money. I got this super glue pack at Harbor Freight for $3. That's a lot of super glue. So I don't see any issues in using this, so that's what I'm going to do. Interestingly enough, the pickguard doesn't fit this way. It's a little too big, so I'm going to go a long ways, but it shouldn't be a problem. So let me clean this off real quick and then I'll get started. Okay, so it's got some household cleaner. I'm going to spray on here just to make sure it's clean. And so that the glue sticks. I'm going to leave the aluminum foil that's already on there because I don't think it will matter. I'm trying to accomplish the whole Faraday cage thing. So I'm just basically covering it up, and it shouldn't matter, but it's still on there. So alright, let's do this glue. The only thing I'm afraid of is that it's going to dry too quick because it bonds in seconds, especially eyes and skin. So keep away. Alright, here we go. It says 1 drop per inch, so we'll see how that goes. Wow, they weren't kidding about the skin and eye irritant. It's pretty irritating on the eyes. Alright, so make sure I don't bond my skin here, and voila. Okay, just gonna let that sit for a while, and should be good. Okay, I've given it some time to dry here. Just gonna start kind of taking this off from the back. It should have no issues. Once I get it started here, there will likely be some leftover hanging off the edges, but oh, you can't see what I'm doing. But we'll take care of that when we get to it, and you don't have to watch this whole procedure, but even if it doesn't go all the way to the edge, it won't really make a difference. Okay, alright, I got myself a piece of cardboard here so I don't scratch up my table, and I'm just going to go through and kind of try to cut the pickup cavities out and some other things. I really wish I had one of those pins, with the X-Acto blade on it that's angled. That would be way easier, but I don't, and I'm not going to buy one just for this. So we'll see what happens. I'll probably just try to figure it out myself and then let you know what came out to be the easiest. I've seen people do like an emery board or something, like a nail file on the edges to kind of get the excess aluminum foil off. But I'll just kind of play around with it and see what works best. Guess I should go ahead and take this plastic off. There's not any risk of glue getting on it at this point. You know what? I think this is like the one of those other pickguards from the Stratosphere, maybe both. I haven't taken any plastic off of one of those, but I can see some bubbles in this, so I'm thinking there's actually another layer of clear on this, so I'll try to take that off. Okay, so I found what may be the best way to do this. I just taking the razor blade and going as close as I can to the edge and just kind of scoring it and then taking it off like that. There's a lot of glare on there, but yeah, so I think that maybe what I end up doing. That way the edge gets as clean as possible. So here we are with the finished product. You can see I've got quite the mess going on here, but it really wasn't too bad. I don't know if I have any suggestions or tips outside of what I've already said. I had a thought. I started to, actually I did go ahead and cut out the bridge post hole, but I thought, you know, it couldn't hurt maybe to have the bridge post actually touch the shielding to kind of complete that cage. I mean, I plan on running a ground wire from the paint inside the cavity. Keep in mind this is a Squier Jazzmaster Vintage Modified, has conductive shielding paint in the cavity, so I plan on running a wire from that to the back of the volume pot. I thought maybe it couldn't hurt to leave that and just push the bridge post, or the bridge post through that. I don't know, could be bad because it's not like a really solid connection, but it's not carrying any sound in the circuit, so I don't know that it would do any harm, but just a thought. Any comments, let me know. So yeah, there is another piece of plastic on here. I didn't really know that was a thing, but that's the way I can say 2 out of the 3 pickguards I've gotten are so far. There's 2 layers of plastic on there, but it's pretty obvious. I mean, you can see the bubbles and stuff. You can see that if you don't take it off, it's pretty apparent that there's something wrong with it, so keep it in mind, but again, it should be fairly obvious. And real quick, here is the pickguard. You can see the camera in it. Hi. Without all the plastic on it, which is good. I think it really takes maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm just dreaming, but brings out more maybe of the red in the pickguard being masked by that plastic. Okay, I got my makeshift workbench set up here. Sorry, it's not very professional, but it's what I'm working with. Black towel, as you can see. So I'm going to take the original pickguard off of the guitar, which I think anybody can probably do that without any explanation with Phillips head screwdriver. So I'm going to do that, and then once I get the pickguard off, I'll kind of show you what's in the guts. Alright, I've got all the screws off around the pickguard except these 2 holding the rhythm circuit potentiometers, which I'm going to replace with this bracket that I talked about in an earlier video. Need to take the volume and tone pots off, and I've just got some dental floss here. You can use whatever Christmas paper wrapping string or what have you, and I'm going to see if this works. It should, but you are the witness to whether it does or not. Of course, it probably would have been better to do this before taking the pickguard screws out, but hindsight is 20/20. Alright, this is not working very well. Stay tuned for attempt number 2. Now I have a little jeweler's screwdriver, flathead, which I'm going to attempt to carefully pry these off with. So here goes. Still not working very well. Well, this seemed to work a lot better. So let me show you how I'm going to do this without damaging the guitar. Carefully sliding it under and prying it as best I can. I don't know how I get myself into these things, but I do. And hopefully I'm not damaging the pickguard at all, which I'm going to try to sell, maybe. But these things are really not wanting to come off. Alright, so there's the volume and there's the tone. So let's take this thing off, see what we got under the hood. I'll get the camera and give you a better shot. So this is what we got under the pickguard. There's some other folks on YouTube that have done videos similar to this, so I'm not showing you anything new necessarily, but this is what my particular guitar looks like. The really cool thing about the Jazzmasters, at least from replacing the pickguard standpoint, is that the pickups themselves are mounted directly to the body, so that you don't have to remove those and totally get off your pickup height. So you know, I'm not gonna not set this back up once I get everything set on the guitar, but at least it's a good starting point that they just stay where they're at right now. So here's the mounting bracket. It's not a real great way to show you me taking that off, but I'm gonna do that, and then yeah, take everything else off, the selector switch, the input jack, and the volume and tone, potentiometers, all that good stuff, and then we'll go from there. So wanted to mention real quick, one of the reasons besides the pickguard replacement that I had the strings off, and I also took the tuners off of this thing, is that I did another video in more detail about this neck that I'm going to put on the guitar that I got from China. So I won't talk about that here, but check out the other video for that bit of information. So yeah, let's go ahead and take all the rest of this stuff off and take it the next step. I've taken off these hex nuts on the volume pots and the input jack. You can do it with anything, I guess, but I'm just using a pair of pliers carefully. You just kind of have to break it loose, and then you can just loosen it by hand the rest of the way. I'm trying to make sure I keep all these washers and things together. So you'll notice that these pots just drop right down in the guitar once you take these off. And I did take this sort of knurled nut, if you will, I don't know what you call that, but off the pickup selector switch. I did break that loose with the pliers as well. If anyone cares, it stands to be damaged a bit that way, but I don't think anybody's gonna notice. I didn't. I don't see any marks, as long as you do it carefully. I don't have a specialized tool for that. Okay, so I got the original pickguard off. Interestingly to me is this cutout right here. If you can see that it's actually, like, the pickguard itself has been indented and like a piece of it taken out where that potentiometer bracket sits, and then the screws for this thing are like they were, oh sorry, let me get that in the light. They were actually just like cut off, like the screw, there were other types of screws, and then they were just chopped off to make short enough. I don't know, that kind of seems sketchy, but this isn't American made, it's a Squier. And I hope that's in focus enough to tell, but yeah, it's just like they've been sheared off to make them short enough. And the bracket just fell down in the guitar as well. But it's got, it almost looks like Velcro, but it's, I don't know, it's just this black, like, it's almost like a ribbon with glue stuck on the top of it. I don't know the purpose of that. And then also, I see, unlike some other pickguards I've seen, and this looks like some kind of cheapo aluminum foil, but it's, the adhesive is not exactly sticking all the way to the pickup or the control cavity portion of the pickguard. Anyway, it looks a little cheap. And then there's aluminum foil here, which I've heard that you're not necessarily supposed to ground the pickup selector switch. Just interesting. And I should note that that's there underneath the pickguard. That's a little lock-in washer for that selector switch. And then the other interesting thing, the last bit, is there's a piece of aluminum foil right here on the tip, like the horn of the pickguard, and it seems like it's purposefully stuck there, but I can't understand why it would be. Maybe it was just an accident. I'm not sure. So if anyone has a comment about that, maybe why that's there, that will be news to me. And then one last thing, I noticed that every one of these spots where the pickguard was screwed into the body, some of the paint's been chipped off, or the finish, sort of like an enamel. The finish is a little bit thicker than I thought it would be, but no big deal. But yeah, so where all these screws are in, there's just a little bit of the chipping off of the paint, which you'll never see. Just an interesting note. All right, I'm gonna see what I can do with this bracket mounting thing I've got to transition to the other piece, and then I'll let you know. Okay, so my plan for shielding the guitar, I'll show you again the back of the pickguard. It's totally shielded with foil. And so what I'm going to do is take a wire and use one of these clips here, electrical clips. So I plan on taking the wire, putting it through here, crimping it, and also probably putting some solder on it, and then putting the screw through that into the body of the guitar cavity, because it's got shielded paint on there. I'm probably going to put it like right here, so not into the thinnest part of the body. I definitely don't want to go through the body, and it'd be hard to screw in or get a drill or a screwdriver right over there or anywhere over here. So that's my plan. And then once I do that, I'm going to solder this to the back of the volume pot. So that should connect the pickup cavity, or the control and pickup guitar cavity, what have you. It should connect it to the pickguard, the back of the pickguard shielding of the aluminum foil, because this volume pot, this little washer here, locking washer, if I can take it off, see there, it touches the body of the potentiometer, and then that also touches the back of the pickguard. So there's your connection, and there's your Faraday cage, which is as best as I understand it. So I'm going to do this, and I did a similar thing on my Strat. If I can remember, it was a number of years ago. But the Strat works really well as far as the noise that it had before versus the noise that it currently has. So yeah, so that's my plan, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so you can see here, here's my wire, and I've got it. I got the wire soldered onto the little clip. I actually took this part off, or rather it came off, because the crimping didn't, well, it crimped the way it should, I guess. The wire was just not thick enough, but I did solder it on there. Anyway, I did use a drill with a little tape marking, so I didn't go through too far, but I did a pilot hole, and then yeah, just put the wire on the clip, crimped it down, soldered it, and then put the screw in. And then here's the back of the volume pot. Hopefully my soldering is okay. Doesn't look like the greatest, but I gave it a pretty good tug, and it seems to be pretty decent mechanical bond. So hopefully that will do it. That is going to be my method, and then we'll get this bracket going over here. I wanted to point out really quick, there's a little bit of chipping that went on, here we go, when I tighten this up, chipping the paint right there-ish. And there's another spot here. Wow, not doing well. Okay, so you can see blue paint right there. And I guess, I mean, I can only assume that the whole body was blue, and then they went over it with black, you know, like right here. So they went over there with the shielding paint over the cavity. So the shielding paint doesn't look super thick, and there's, you know, maybe some chipping here and there. And I know you're supposed to have like a complete cage. You know, if you were going to do this with aluminum foil inside the cavity, or copper foil, you'd have to have, you know, a continuous connection all the way around everywhere. I'm not too concerned about it. I'm not going for perfection here, but I'm just trying to reduce any noise that could potentially be there, and I think this will help out. And yeah, so just letting you know, every little bit that may be of guidance if you're doing something similar. These potentiometer wheels for the rhythm potentiometers, there's a little bitty hex screw in there. So just to tell you, give you an idea of the size, it's super small. Wow, that's much better light. So yeah, I've got an old school kit here, and it's the second smallest one in the pack, and that's how small that guy is. You can see it, yeah, way better right there. All right, here's the size difference in the Squier bracket and then the one from All Parts that fits the American. So you can tell there the American's longer. The American, or the All Parts part, does have screws that are that fit, I guess, that they're not sheared off for you know, an application that doesn't really go with what the screw is made for. Let me show you this also, which I knew before I got this, but if you can see, that's not the way to do it. Here you go. The hole in the Squier one is a little bit bigger than the All Parts part, which you probably can't tell, but I'm just gonna have to ream those out a little bit to be able to fit the pot shafts through there. I got the holes sized properly on my bracket now. I did it with a drill bit. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. I mean, if that's all you have, that's cool, but if you have some reaming tools, yeah, do it that way, I guess the right way. But I never seem to have the right tools for the job. I just gotta make do with what I got. One quick note, I found this out. For some reason, this pot here has 2 nuts on it, and this one only has 1 and a washer, which seems kind of weird. I don't know if they did that for spacing. I'm assuming they did, but you can space these with the set screw on the pot shaft. So I don't know if that was just some kind of ghetto way to do it. I don't know. I'm going to see how the bracket fits onto these pots, and just leave the hardware that's on there now. Alright, I ran into another issue, an issue I did not expect with the pickup selector switch. It was too big for the hole that was in the pickguard, so I tried to take some sandpaper and go through it and try to ream it with that. I ended up having to take a knife and really scraping it out, getting in there and digging out the plastic. So now it fits. But yeah, I totally did not expect that to be an issue. But just to be aware that your pickguard may not be sized for the cheaper, I guess, selector switch that comes with the Squier. Having a really hard time fitting this. I've cut myself trying to shave off some of the edge of the pickguard that's butting up against the neck. So I'm going to stop right now and collect my thoughts and figure out what to do. Okay, so I was doing this late last night and I cut my finger, and I actually cut my finger, another finger today. I'm not as tired and I'm more in my right mind. So I did have to do quite a bit of shaving on the end of this pickguard. Also, the neck I'm putting on, I plan to put on, will overhang anyway, so you won't be able to see that portion, but it fits much better now. Unfortunately, not a huge deal, but if I can get in here, see that area right there? That is, those aren't shavings in there. It's just paint bubbled up. But on the right side of the screen there, the paint is coming off from the switch right there, because I was trying to fit the pickguard on multiple times, trying to get this top portion here. So this portion is the portion I was sanding right here. But as I was putting it on and off, I'd already had all the knobs and pots, not the knobs, but the pots and the switch installed. So I'm putting it on and off, and it was this portion of the that end there of the switch was rubbing up against this here, and it's taking some of the paint off. But I did check it with a multimeter, and I'm glad, actually kind of glad it didn't fit last night, because I would have put it all on and then I had to take it back off. But I did have the presence of mind to, I have a multimeter here. I set it 4 ohms, and I put it on one of the lowest settings. And for the shielding paint, as far as I understand it, you probably won't get maybe enough resistance to make the audible sound. I didn't actually try it. Maybe it would, but I just set it on the lowest setting and made sure I got some sort of reading, and I did at multiple points, even on when I put it on one of the pots and then put it to the cavity of the shield paint. I still got a reading, so I think everything's good. Everything fits as far as I know. I haven't screwed it all down, but it's much better than it was last night. Okay, the pick guard is on. All the screws fit pretty well. I didn't really have any problems at all with the lineup of those. I didn't lose any screws, so that's good. These are the ones left over from the original bracket for the pots, and this is that extra nut that I left off. So yeah, everything's good to go. And now on to more things with the neck.